Today I'm with Kari Fuller, and me and Kari just finished our one-on-one mentorship together, and we were just doing a bit of a catch-up before we started recording now. And yeah, I'm excited for him to start talking about his results and the journey he's had because just in the last 2 weeks that we stopped working together, he was just saying he's booked a bunch of calls, like 3, 4 calls in the last 2 weeks, a bunch of follow-ups, some potential clients that he's going to start working with. So I'm really excited to start talking about his journey and just what he's gone through. Hey, Kari, really glad that you could join me today just to talk a bit about your journey. Yeah, why don't you kick us off just to give a bit of an introduction to yourself, tell people who you are, and yeah, how you came to find me.
Yeah, so I was actually scouring YouTube to try and figure out, um, I guess, how to start my automation business is what it first kind of started out as.
Hmm.
Um, that kind of turned more into a consulting business now.
Hmm.
Um, I found you through, I think you were on a podcast. I forget who you were on the podcast with, but but yeah, so now I kind of do funnel building, funnel automation. That's sort of what my business is. I don't have clients yet, but I have a bunch of calls booked, and
Hmm.
I'm hoping to close those calls in the next few days.
Yeah, when you mentioned that you were scouring YouTube looking for tutorials, like what type of stuff were you actually looking for in the agency space?
I was looking for basically how to start it. So I've always heard of like marketing agencies, email marketing agency, SMMA, all that sort of stuff. But I really had a passion for automation because it's kind of what I do at my full-time job.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't really see a whole lot of automation agencies out there,
Yeah.
or at least I didn't hear people talking about them a lot. And me wanting to be kind of like different and more, I thought being different would make me more marketable.
Hmm.
So I kind of went on this journey to figure out, how do I start an automation agency? What kind of tools do I use? Came across the tools Zapier,
Yeah.
started looking at that a little bit. And then that your name ended up just kind of like coming up. I kind of watched the podcast and I was like, I gotta reach out to this guy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And you mentioned that you are still currently in a job, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm currently in a full-time job. I'm doing my sort of what's turned more into a consultant agency now than an automation agency.
Hmm.
I'm doing that part-time. So just, building up the business, getting all the intricacies settled out
Yeah.
and doing outreach.
Yeah, that outreach is like the big thing that everyone I've worked with so far, it's like, hey, we just need to do more outreach. It's like we can learn everything, we can plan everything, but unless we're speaking to people and booking calls like you are now and potentially closing people, it's like there's nothing else to really focus on initially.
Yeah, it's a game of volume. Outreach.
Yeah, to a certain extent. And mentioning that you're in a job and this is almost like a not a side hustle at the moment, but you started it part time. I mean, what actually made you want to start doing something on the side as opposed to just carry on at the job?
I'll be honest, it's more money really, but also just kind of working towards being able to kind of just take more control of my life. Not really have to be dependent on, someone else for a paycheck or someone, being able to work from wherever I want to work from.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, kind of just run my own life, really, just have control of my own life is really what it boils down to.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I'm asking is because I'm sure there'll be other people watching this who are in a job at the moment, and a lot of people can have the excuse, unfortunately, of I don't have the time or I want to get this, but how am I going to do it after hours? But it's like you're a prime example. You're in a job and you had that goal and you started to put the time into it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my job's pretty flexible, right? Because I work in software.
Yeah.
So, I mean, my job's pretty project based aside from the different meetings and stuff like that I have. But
Mm.
in between meetings or, when I'm done my job, if I can get little stuff done for my business and then get stuff that actually moves the needle forward done for my business when I'm off work or early in the morning before work starts.
Yeah.
It's just kind of what you have to do. But I mean, it's worth it for me, and I don't even have clients yet just because I've learned so much.
Mm. Yeah, because I remember we initially started focused on just like the technical skills of Zapier and automation and things like that. But quite quickly, what happened also with other people I've worked with is it very quickly diverges into, okay, we got the technical skills, but the important stuff is how are we actually reaching out to people? What are we actually saying to them? Like we need to actually get people on calls and things like that. Can you talk a bit
Yeah.
about that kind of initial stage that we were in?
Yeah, the technical skill part is like you there's definitely some foundational stuff that you need to know, especially in regards to Zapier or Zapier, however you say it. But like for instance, like webhooks and APIs
Mm,
were some things that I kind of was like, I definitely didn't know how to do those at first.
mm,
But like once you learn webhooks and APIs, then it's kind of like, I don't want to say you're like a master at Zapier, but you're competent enough to be able to,
mm,
sell your Zapier services, because most people don't really know, like that's as advanced as it's going to get
yeah.
for Zapier. And then that learning curve for me, especially, working in software, wasn't super steep. So I mean, I think we went over that for maybe like the first week. And then
Yeah.
after that, it kind of started getting more into, all right, what are the like outreach strategies, framing the offer, stuff like that. So yeah, the technical part, it doesn't take long, but there are definitely some things that you need to 100% know to build that foundation, have that confidence to be able to actually sell your services to people.
Yeah, and that honestly, I just essentially teach and guide on the things I wish I'd known when I first started. Because I'm a massive nerd originally. I was all about the technical things, like, oh, I know all the technical API things, I can do everything about it and build APIs, but like no one cares if you can't put that into like a business context of how it actually helps the business or knowing how to reach out to people and say, like, I can help the business in this way. And it just so happens that I'm using Zapier and automation, these type of tools. And that's kind of the direction we started to go in quite quickly, if I remember.
Yeah. I remember a big problem that I was having was like automation. Yeah, it saves people time, of course, but I wanted to more so frame my offer in a way that where it actually makes people money.
Mm,
So I thought that that was something huge that I got out of the engagement, is being able to offer the offer the tool or offer the service in a way that's actually like revenue generating for
mm,
clients. I thought that was a huge like block that I had when I was getting started.
yeah. Yeah, that's something that took me ages to really kind of start getting ingrained in my brain. It's like business owners that we're working with, they primarily mostly just care about money. Like that's why they have a business is more
Yep.
often than not to make money. And even with our Zapier and automation skills, it's like we need to tie it back. This is just my personal view, but we need to keep tying it back to how is this making the business more money? And we need to express it to them in that way. And it was cool to see you start to actually ingrain that as well, because it's helped me a lot in regards to the conversations I have.
100%. 100%. I agree.
Yeah. And before, so you saw me on this podcast, which was pretty cool because that was like 9 months ago type of thing. You reached out to me. I mean, right before we started potentially working together, like, did you have any concerns or like, were you worried about potentially what it would actually be like?
um, Not really, man. I mean, like, I feel like I got to a point where it was just like, all right, if this is going to be something that I'm going to take seriously, I can't like. I went to college for 4 years and I paid, hundreds of, I mean, not hundreds of thousands, but tens of thousands of dollars to go to
Yeah.
school to get a degree. And it's like if I can't pay, if I can't pay a fraction of that to take my life, like to take over my own life, then like I don't really deserve to be able to like take my life over. If
Yeah.
I'm willing to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a college degree for someone else to be in control of me, then it's like, then it's kind of like, what do you really want to do? If you can't invest in yourself and if you can't invest in your business, um, then it's not gonna work.
Hmm. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I went to university as well, and back then I did it just because I didn't really know what else to do, to be honest. Like back then, that
Yeah,
was
same.
like 2012-ish, and the amount I spent was probably obviously I'm converting from my local currency. It was like 15 to $20,000 type of thing. And
Mhm.
I paid for that out of pocket myself. I had to like work and do stuff to make that money because I didn't have like the support. And when I think about it now, obviously, now that I know that there are coaching programs and courses around marketing and sales, it's like, wow, I could have got a lot of like actual useful business skills if I had just taken that money and known what I knew now, basically.
Yeah, half the stuff I learned in school I don't even use.
Yeah, bro. Algebra.
But
Who uses
but
algebra?
I use everything that I mean I've been using everything that I've learned just in our few weeks of talking.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I don't position myself in any way as like a business coach. Like I mostly focus on like, hey, I know automation skills really well and I can teach you how I've like positioned the automation work I do in the business context. And just naturally it's fun to share. It's like this is what I've learned about marketing, this is what I've learned about offers. Even if I'm not the best at it, it's just
Mm,
cool to be able to impart some of that knowledge from my own, just my own journey and my own failures and my own experiences.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And so we finished work in, well, we started in the more technical focus and then we moved more into the business focus. And I remember that when we first started, like we weren't doing too much outreach. And I thought it was quite cool how you start having that one of those very first conversations. Do you want to talk a bit about that? It was with a spa, I think, or something like that.
Oh yeah. So it got to a point where I was trying to figure out sort of like what outreach strategy works for me.
Yeah.
So I was doing outreach through social media. I was doing cold emails. I was knocking on doors. And I remember when I first started out, I was niche hopping a little bit
Mm,
and just trying to figure out what my niche is. And I was focused on lawyers for some reason. I was like, I want to help lawyers automate their business processes. I'm sure they deal with a lot of paperwork, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
So I went to go knock on this lawyer's door. Turns out she wasn't there, even though her office hours said that she was supposed to be there. I get there, she wasn't there. So I'm leaving the building and I see this lady taking like a TikTok of her office and it's like after hours. So I kind of spark
Yeah.
up a conversation with her. And that was one of my first prospects. Unfortunately she couldn't afford the services at the time, but that sort of kicked off like how I have conversations with people, my presentations, different things like that. I mean, that's what kind of solidified like, oh, this is what outreach is all about. This is how you actually do it. These are the things that you have to say. Um, so yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because if I remember, you were quite keen to focus on the lawyer angle just because of kind of you had some experience and exposure to the area in the past. I was like, okay, cool. That's always helpful to focus on an area that you personally know people or you've like personally gone through that environment. And if I remember correctly, we were thinking it was like, okay, how can we reach these people? And I'm cold calling, but I'm not really getting through to the lawyers that much. They're busy, and the people on the desk are kind of like, "Hey, I know they're busy." I was like, "Well," I remember we just like had that moment of like, "Well, are there any lawyer offices around you? Like, let's just like rock up at them. Like, it can never hurt to just be in person, build a bit of trust, and say like, "Hey, I was in the area, I was walking by, thought I'd pop in, crazy idea type of thing." I think we had that conversation, and then like literally the next day, you went and did it.
Yeah, I did do that. I was a little bit sick at work that day and went ahead and just woke up early and just got that done.
Yeah. No, it was that's what I really liked about like your mindset around things. It was like, hey, let's just do it. Like you put in, like you were saying, you're working a job at the moment, you're doing this part-time, you're waking up early, like you're just making it happen. A lot of people like I was saying, don't have the time or how am I gonna do this? But it's like there's always a way if you want it bad enough, if you want to go towards those goals enough.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And now you say you're more focused kind of on the consultant side of things. Like, can you talk a little bit about how well, more so you transitioned from, okay, we originally doing automation stuff, but now we're kind of going more into like, how can I just help businesses in general? Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess it has a little bit to do with number one, my niche, right? I've
Yeah.
kind of solidified on a niche of being able to help coaches, consultants, and people that sell courses. I call it the triple C.
Yeah.
coaches, consultants, and course sellers. Number one, because I have experience as a coach. I have experience as a consultant professionally as well.
Mm.
Um, and I'm learning how to build courses and everything like that myself. So that's kind of where it's turned from me just like helping people just with automation, because
Mm.
now I've learned so many of these other different things that have helped me, like offer framing, like running, paid ads, building out marketing funnels and building out sales funnels. Um, the power of getting a testimonial when you're first starting out.
Mm.
Um, all those different things. So now it's kind of like I use automation as a tool to help people, but before I even offer my help to someone, my number one outreach strategy now is to basically just ask people, uh kind of I'm just curious about your business. If you're a coach or you're a consultant or you're someone who sells courses, I'll reach out to you and I'm just curious about what you do, what kind of courses you sell, what your operations are like. And then if I think that
Mm.
there's a spot for me to be able to help you in your in your sales process or in your sales funnel, whether that be through automation. I ended up hiring a contractor to run Facebook ads for my consulting agency.
Mm.
So whether it's that, whether it's building landing pages, because that's what my very first business was building websites for people.
Yeah.
So now over the years I've accumulated sort of all of these different skills to
Yeah.
where now it's like I'm coming to businesses and I'm saying, all right, what are your operations like? What are you doing? And then I'll go back and I'll think and I'll be like, I think that I can help here, here, and here.
Yeah.
um, and this has just added automation, to that just bucket of skills.
Yeah. And like you were saying before we start recording, it can be like a little bit like jacks of all tradie. But I mean, I personally believe that at the start, it's not the end of the world to do that because you're starting to see what type of problems people have, what type of problems you enjoy actually solving, what type of problems you can actually help solve. And then from there, you okay, cool. I'm starting to see this like consistent pattern. Now I can kind of like wrap that up and deliver that as like a quote unquote productized service. And that's
Yeah,
where I believe a lot of people in automation space should be going. And that's also what I've been doing for myself, just because it's much easier to scale a business like that when it's kind of the same thing over and over, the same type of problem over and over, roughly plus minus. But it's good to in the starts, like you're saying, you can be a bit jacksy or trady, I think, because you start to
mhm.
just learn what you like, what you're good at, you're stacking skills and all that thing.
Yeah. I mean, even in the automation space, it's like everything that I do it's cool because automation itself is kind of broad, right?
Yeah.
It's like now I know how to automate. I know how to automate someone's social media. I know I can onboard someone on a buffer, schedule
Mm.
out all their posts, link up to their Twitter, link up to their Instagram, link up to their, whatever, and then basically automate all of their social media. I know how to automate someone's email sequences in ConvertKit or an Active Campaign or whatever, in HubSpot. I know how to automate someone's CRM in HubSpot. I know how to automate someone's onboarding process.
Yeah.
I know how to make sort of an automated sales funnel, an automated inbound sales funnel. So it all kind of goes back to automation. But like we were saying before, it's automation that drives revenue. It's not automation that just saves time. It's automation that drives revenue. And that's what I
Yeah.
want to teach people how to do and help people implement in their businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what's interesting is I do have some clients at the moment which they kind of are seeing the biggest benefit of this is saving me and my team a bunch of time. But it's like very clear to me that it also ties back into revenue, but they're just seeing it as the time thing, which I'm like, cool. It's like you can see the benefits how it is, but just from my experience, the more you can tie it back into revenue, that's always the easiest sell because who doesn't want more money basically in their business?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's what they're in for.
Especially when you're just starting out, being able to tie it back to revenue is going to give you a little bit more leverage in your outreach strategy, because it's like if you're just going to go and tell people, yeah, well, I can save you time. Well, it's like, well,
Yeah.
how much time? And if you don't have any case studies, or if you don't have any, if you don't have any data behind that, how can you tell people how much time you're going to save them? Unless you're doing it through some sort of discovery where it's like, well, you're asking them, well, how long does this process take you? What if this process, took you 4 hours instead of 8 hours? Would that be, valuable for your business?
Yeah.
That's the only way I can really see you kind of making an offer, a time-based sell.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like tying it back to revenue is just much easier.
Yeah. But the way you phrased that question of how you said, like, would this be valuable to your business? I love that. Like, that's the mindset I'm always trying to ingrain for myself. And also I'm trying to pass to people. Just we have these ideas around how the automation can help. But we just got to ask them. It's like, hey, I think this can help your business. And as you're saying, like, do you think this would be valuable to your business? And they can either say
Yep.
yes, they can say no.
Yep.
And for the time that we've been working together, was there anything that you particularly found helpful, that you really found beneficial?
Um, Number one, I would say definitely because the technical Zapier stuff. For me, I'm the sort of person where I can watch as many YouTube videos as I want to watch,
Mm,
but um when there's things I have questions about, if I can't get my questions answered,
mm,
then like there's a blockage because it means that there's something fundamental that I'm not understanding about how something works. And if I can't understand like why something works a certain way, I've always been that type of student where it's like I'll ask follow-up question after follow-up question after follow-up question until I can understand like, oh, this works this way because of this.
yeah.
So when we were going over the API stuff and the webhook stuff, I thought that was super beneficial. And then also sort of just like the guidance of taking a skill and making the skill into uh just a business, right? I think that
Mm,
when I first came to you, it was kind of like, all right, I have this skill that I want to sell to people, but being introduced to all of the different things that turn that skill into like a business operation, all
mm.
the things that surround the skill, that actually make that skill into a business. I thought that was something that I was missing as well. Um, that you definitely gave me guidance, um, in regards to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And when you say all the things surrounding that skill, could you talk a bit about those a little bit? The ones you found helpful?
Outreach strategies for sure. Outreach is like understanding number one that outreach is a volume game. I kind of got that already,
Yeah.
but the different strategies of outreach, like recording a video on your phone to build trust with people as opposed to
Mm,
typing them a message on Instagram, or just even like the way that you approach outreach, not necessarily like selling people stuff, but more just like as just strictly investigative, figuring out what kind of problem someone's having in their business and if you can even help. So I
mm,
mean, I feel like when you're first starting out, you just want to sell because you want to get money in,
yeah.
right? But when you take a step back and you actually figure out, does someone have a problem that you can actually solve?
Yeah.
It sounds simple, but it's definitely a brain switch that had to happen, at least for me. Um, so yeah, I think that those were the two main things that kind of surrounded the business. Outreach, marketing, just being in environments to get opportunities
Mm,
constantly. Like when I was at that lawyer's office and the lawyer wasn't there, but the lady, that had the microblading place that was there.
mm,
Just being in those type of environments, setting up your own email domains and having a professional email domain
mm,
to do your outreach with. Not uh Another big thing for me that I also want to help people with was not having so much fluff in between of like your opera. So like spending
mm.
all of this time on like building this elaborate website, like if you're not doing outreach, the website doesn't matter. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not highly skilled at whatever it is you're doing, your website doesn't matter. You can have the most simple landing page ever.
Yeah.
If you have the right, lead magnets, and if you have the right, like things like lead magnets and things like landing pages, like I didn't really know how all of those things worked together from
Mm,
a business operation perspective.
yeah.
Before we started talking.
Yeah, that's a big thing. It's a lot of I know when I first started as quote unquote like a freelancer or just like a kind of simple contractor, you kind of don't realize that out of the gate you are a business owner. It's like this is how I think about it. It's like even though you're the only person there and you're quote unquote a freelancer, you're still in a business. It's like the business of you. And you still have to do all that stuff around outreach and marketing and branding and what's my offer. And yeah, it took me a lot of time to realize all those bits. And now I like to think I can potentially share some of that, like, hey, we need at least the minimum of these things. And you basically need to always be thinking about these things now.
Yeah, yeah, and that's sort of the sort of consulting thing that I've sort of stepped into,
Yeah.
is being able to, number one, teach people about all the things that I've learned from you, learn from being in different groups that I'm in, learn from experience, and learn from results that I've gotten for other people for free, for, in exchange for a testimonial.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, teaching people about that stuff while also being able to actually implement systems and processes,
Yeah.
automated systems and processes in their business. That's what my thing is now, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like you said, you're coming from a fairly technical background, so it was quite a nice transition to go into the automation stuff. You
Yep.
mentioned that when you were learning on your own, you'd sometimes hit roadblocks because you wanted to be able to have a bit more of a back and forth. At those times when you did hit the roadblocks, what did you generally do? Did you kind of just switch, or did you kind of push through it? Like, what would normally happen when that happened?
Yeah, so coming from a technical background, I know that I think you study computer science in university as well.
Yeah.
And I guess sort of like my natural reaction is like go to Google, go to Stack Overflow, whatever the case may be. So like whenever I run into technical problems, um, I go write the documentation.
Yeah.
I go right online. But even when you do that stuff, it's like some things don't work because of, not necessarily because you're doing anything wrong, but maybe the way you set something up was wrong. Maybe
Mm,
a lot of times your logic is right, and a lot of times, your implementation is correct, but maybe something in your settings is wrong, and you're not going to find that sort of stuff on, a YouTube tutorial, or you're not going to find that sort of stuff on like Stack Overflow or Google, or like, you know, online, because it's like, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's that it's something that you did in a previous step that's not allowing what you did correctly to work.
yeah.
And that's the dialogue, like that's the in-depth dialogue that I like to be able to have.
Yeah.
Um, and sort of like being able to have someone else on the phone, or have someone else troubleshoot things with you that has more experience than you, just makes that process 10 times faster and easier.
Mm. Would it be quite like frustrating essentially when you didn't have that?
Yeah, I mean, it takes long to figure, especially in the automation space. Like it takes long to figure things out.
Yeah.
Especially when you get into webhooks and when you get into APIs and stuff like that. Like it takes a while to figure things out, because it's just like coding. It's
Yeah.
like you write 130 lines of code and something's not working, and it turns out that it's just a semicolon that you missed
Mm.
in line 7, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you're on Google for 2 hours, you're on Stack Overflow for
Yeah.
another hour, and then you look back at your code and it's like, oh, I missed a semicolon on line 35.
Yeah.
Like having a second pair of eyes, as simple as it sounds, like it can save you hours and hours of time, like hours of time.
Yeah. You're giving me like flashbacks to my coding days, basically.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so just as we start wrapping up, if someone was watching this and they're potentially thinking about getting some guidance in regards to automation or how you can turn it into an actual like business or do as freelancing, like who would you say, or what type of person would you say this is potentially a good experience for the one-on-one teaching?
I'd say, if you're someone who is like, if you are someone who has a skill, particularly automation, or even in like system building, because that's where really my natural skill is, right?
Yeah.
Automation is a skill that I have, but my natural, like the reason why I got hired at the different jobs that I got hired at, and the reason that I've been able to help people, is because I'm really good at building out systems.
Yeah.
I'm good at architecting systems, flow charts, and things like that. So if you're someone who's interested in that sort of stuff, and you want to figure out how to actually like monetize that skill, I say that, and you're serious about wanting to
Mm,
monetize that skill,
mm,
um, I say that this is a good engagement for someone like that. Uh, yeah, or someone who's just interested in building automation for their own business or building out automations for their own business.
mm.
I've built plenty of automations for my business just from some of the skills that I've learned in this engagement. Even though I'm in the business of automation, I've still built my own automations.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that those two archetypes are probably the best for this sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate that, man. Um, yeah, just as we wrap up, just want to say thanks for taking the time. And obviously it was a pleasure that you put your trust in me to do some work together. And just want to thank you, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
And if anyone wants to reach out to you, if you're comfortable with that, what's the best way for people to contact you or follow your journey or get some help from you potentially?
Yeah, you can reach out to me at Kyrie at fullerstrategies.com.
Hmm.
You can reach out to me on Instagram at Kyrie Fuller, Fuller spelled with a V instead of a U because that name is taken. Or on Twitter, my Kyrie Fuller. Um, yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll drop all the links in the bottom so people can also easily reach out if they have any questions or, like I said, they potentially want some help with it. If you've been potentially thinking about getting guidance or support in regards to improving your automation skills and then also turning those skills into high value projects online, then I want you to reach out to me because that is what I'm doing with select students at the moment. I only take on just a handful of students at one time so I can make sure that everyone gets enough one-on-one time and also enough support from me. And we can just have a light discussion about where you are right now in regards to your automation skills, whether you have those skills at all. Maybe we need to improve those first. And then how we could potentially put together a game plan for you to start getting more projects online using those skills just like I have and just like I've been teaching some of my students. So you can book in a call. Again, no pressure, no obligations there, just to see how I might be able to potentially help you shortcut that journey from all the hard lessons I've had to learn myself. So again, you can just check out my website. You can either send me a message or you can book in a time directly and we can just have a chat right off the bat.